Talofa lava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suisuiki. Coming up, the deaths of two men in New Caledonia sparks anger. Also,
the underlying problematic issue that this report documents, systemic racism.
A report suggests the Indonesian government continues to deny Papuan rights, and later on,
and it's actually really important that we're really mindful about what happens in the ocean.
Protesters in the Cook Islands say more time is needed for seabed mining. The two men who were shot in New Caledonia on Thursday were the subject of a search warrant. This takes the death toll to 13 people after months of unrest in the French Pacific Territory over Paris's plan for voting reforms that Indigenous Kanak people fear would leave them in a permanent minority, crushing their hopes for independence. Joining me to talk more about this is Islands Business correspondent Nick McLellan. Kia ora, Nick, what's the latest?
The public prosecutor in Noumea, Yves Dupart, has released a statement confirming that a 30-year-old man and another 29-year-old man, both Kanak, were shot and killed by police during a military operation on Thursday morning. Saint Louis has been a source of clashes between Kanak protesters and the French police going back some months. On the 10th of July, an elite sniper from the GIGN paramilitary police shot and killed another Kanak, Roch Womiton, a nephew of the main political leader from the Union Caledonian Party. So it's long been an area of tensions between police and the Kanak community at this tribe, which is about 10 kilometres from the capital.
And how have the FLNKS responded?
There's been enormous anger from the independence movement. A statement released by the leaders of the FLNKS coalition talked about the killings as assassinations, suggested that one man was shot in a summary execution, their words, and while calling for calm and a peaceful response from other people in the independence movement, they've called for an independent and impartial investigations, in many ways suggesting that there are questions about the official account of the incident that led to the death of two young men.
The death toll is now at 13 after months of unrest. Will we continue to see more incidents like this? It just seems like tensions are worsening. There's
a significant ongoing tension. It's worth remembering that Saint Louis has a long history of clashes like this. It was set up as a tribe, a Kanak tribe, back in the 19th century as people fleeing clashes in the north of the country arrived for sanctuary at the Catholic Church at Saint Louis and La Concepcion, the neighbouring tribe. Kanaks worked as domestics and field workers for the Catholic mission at Saint Louis. 20 years ago, there were similar clashes like this. In 2003, a house there was burnt down. There was an exchange of gunfire. Police moved in. There was a huge police operation in August 2003. A raid with 250 police, helicopters, armoured vehicles, very similar to what we're seeing today. So this tribe has always been a site of colonial history of tensions between the French authorities and indigenous Kanak. I think it's a particularly tense time at the moment because the 24th of September, just a few days away, is the anniversary of French colonisation. France annexed the islands of New Caledonia in 1853. The 24th of September each year is sometimes regarded as a day of mourning by independence supporters. It was also seen as a day of citizenship under the Noumea Accord period, a time to bring people together. But I think the angry response from independence supporters to the death of these two young men will show that there's a rising concern of further clashes. Indeed, the French government has expanded the overnight curfew that's been in place for 4 months back to the time, so 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., basically for 12 hours overnight, people are banned from going out in public. We'll see what happens, though, around the country as the anniversary on the 24th of September comes forward.
As well as expanding the curfew, do you think the French government will send more police or security forces? I mean, they've got their 7,000 on the ground already in New Caledonia.
The French have already ramped up the number of police and specialist squads in New Caledonia. In July this year, a freighter named Caledonia arrived from Toulon in France in the port of Nouméa and unloaded another 10 armoured cars for the gendarmerie. These are Centaur armoured cars, that could be used for protection of police. They brought military vehicles as well, both trucks and armoured vehicles for the French military, who up until now have been providing logistic and technical support for police operations. There are a whole range of squads deployed by France, some 29 units of gendarmerie, police officers, backed by elite units like the GIGN, which is an elite paramilitary unit of the National Police. It's been GIGN snipers who've killed both Roquematon in July and the two men killed in the last few days. There are anti-terrorist squads and specialist officers as well. France has really militarized this conflict, and the so-called forces of order have been deployed not just in the capital Nouméa and surrounding towns, which have been the focus of tension, but have been deployed in the north of the country as well, and even some to the outer islands, the Loyalty Islands. I think there's a real concern from community leaders that this crisis can't be resolved through policing alone. There has to be a political solution. And yet, as we speak, there's no government in France. Prime Minister Michel Barnier is talking about announcing a new government in coming days. But it's been months, literally, since the 7th of July elections saw a defeat for President Macron. People in Nouméa are very worried that Paris hasn't got its act together at a time of enormous economic tensions in New Caledonia.
Fiji's first Indo-Fijian Prime Minister, held hostage in George Speight's 2000 coup, says nothing has been done for the victims of the violent uprising. Speight and the leader of the mutineers, former soldier Shane Stevens, were among 7 prisoners who were granted pardons by President Ratu Jone Viliame Katonivere and free from jail this week. Mahendra Chaudhry, who had a gun to his head during the takeover, says his concern is that justice has not been done for the victims of the coup. Margot Staunton asked Mr. Chaudhry what he would say to Speight if they met.
Into the country after all these coups, not just his, but the ones in 1987, which were all executed in the name of the indigenous people. It has retarded our development to the point where the very people you said you were doing it for are now living in poverty. 75% of those living in the country, poverty, are the indigenous people. So you've done them a great disservice to them. And we have lost people now. Even the indigenous people are leaving the country. Those who are qualified, talented people. It's not only just Indians who are leaving. Somehow or the other, the trust and confidence in government in Fiji has eroded substantially. I think what they see in this government, what they promised, and what actually are they delivering. There is a big difference there. So they are leaving. Statistics are quite shocking. In the last 18 months, some 80,000 of our people have left for one reason or the other. We have to do something about this. We've got to stop this. And the only way to do that is to make sure that we have a government in place which really cares and which governs in the interest of the people and not in the interest of particular classes of people, groups of people, or of ethnic origin of people. Until such time as we have the political will to deal with this, I'm afraid we will not have the kind of stability that we need to move the country forward.
How much did it hurt you, the fact that the coup was racially driven here? They didn't want an Indo-Fijian in power.
Well, yes, it was Speight himself said right from the beginning that he was the front man. there were others behind the coup. And I hope that he will enlighten us on that. He will tell us who were really the figures behind the coup. I think he owes it to the people to divulge this information, because on his arrest, he himself said that if the police had done their job properly or honestly, he would have had very distinguished company with him on Nukalau Island, where he was put in a temporary prison.
A new report by Human Rights Watch highlights 60 years of racial discrimination by Indonesia against indigenous Papuans, including torture and arbitrary arrests. The report says the Indonesian government denies Papuans basic rights. Papuan children cannot acquire adequate education because the government has failed to recruit teachers. Health services are also inadequate. Papua provinces have higher infant mortality rates and in some instances are close to 12 times higher than rates in Jakarta. Andreas Hasono with Human Rights Watch spoke with Caleb Fotheringham.
5 years ago, August 2019, there was a Papuan student dormitory attack, racist attack, very ugly, by Indonesian military, ultra-nationalist militant in Surabaya. During the attack, they not only threatened to kill, they also used insulting words. Excuse my language, monkey, etc. It was recorded on video. It became viral. Thus, there were many other protests all around Indonesia, at least 33 cities, against racism, against ethnic Papuan, against people of Papuan origin. But the government, there was some violence, there were some riots, there was some killing in Wamena, in West Papua. Indigenous Papuan kill some Indonesian settlers, but Indonesian settlers and also Indonesian military kill indigenous Papuan as well. So that was the beginning of the Indonesian government crackdown. That year and also the following 2 years, there were more and more arrests against indigenous Papuan who protested against racism and also revived the idea that West Papua was not integrated democratically back in 1969 by Indonesian government. So that is the report. It's about the lowest standard of education in Indonesia, the lowest standard of health in Indonesia against indigenous Papuan, their difficulties to find job, the day-to-day insult that they receive because of their skin color, because of their hair, because of their Papuan ethnic origin. We interviewed 49 people who were arrested, jailed, convicted for quote-unquote treason inside their detention or inside the police detention, inside the prison or after their release. They talk about the beating, the stabbing, the cutting of their dreadlock, their hair with bayonet by Indonesian police, and of course the insulting word that they receive.
You talked about the day-to-day racism that West Papuan people receive. It really does feel like it goes a step above that in this report as well. You know, you hear about the torture, which is incredibly horrific. How commonplace is that?
I am almost 60 years old. I have heard about this day-to-day racism since I was having my first Papuan friend when I was in my 20s in my college. It means that over the last 40 years, that kind of story keep on going on, day-to-day racism. Their body, their hair, their skin color, quote-unquote, their primitiveness, their laziness, that kind of thing. Regarding torture, again, this is not something new that I heard because I work as a human rights researcher. Since I was a student, I already heard about stories of Papuan being abused, being beaten, kidnapped, sexually abused, sexually attacked I already heard that. I was 21, 20 years old. Now I'm 60. Over the last 40 years, I kept on hearing that.
In terms of the timing of this report, why was it decided to put it out now?
In October next month, Indonesia will have a new president. Unfortunately, over the last 10 years, under President Joko Widodo, initially there were promises of reform in West Papua. He released some political prisoners. He also said that foreign journalists can freely go to West Papua without asking for permit. It did not materialize. In fact, the number of arrests, the number of political prisoners when he came to power, 100 something, 105, I think. And now, when he's about to finish his term, is bigger, almost 200. Thus, we expect that we want this new government to understand the problem and to think about new policies, new approaches, including to answer historical injustice, social injustice, economic injustice, education, health, and other things that indigenous Papuans have suffered, not only over the last 10 years, but over the last 6 decades under Indonesian rule.
Is there any hope that the new government will be better and allow more freedoms for journalists, but also treat Papuans a bit more fairly?
We have a new president whose record on human rights is not so good. But who knows? There are people around him, among his family members or whoever, who might have an opportunity to tell Prabowo Subianto that Human Rights Watch has published this kind of report, and not only Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, Greenpeace, many other organizations also did that. Who knows? Someone has a golden opportunity to tell that to the president-elect.
It feels like globally, the understanding of West Papua is very, very slim. Inside Indonesia, I'm interested to know, are the Indonesian people aware of the racism and discrimination that Papuan people face?
Unfortunately, no. If you research about average Indonesian view on Papua, one, exotic. Second, the most common that they will express is, I want to go there. I want to see there. 3, natural wonder. Of course, bird of paradise, butterflies, the variety of birds in West Papua, and also the PNG are amazing. But that is very slim. They don't know that the Papuan have suffered, that many of their forests have been deforested, turned into oil plantation, mining companies, and don't forget, transmigration villages. For 3 decades, Indonesian government subsidized settlers to move into West Papua, especially along the border with PNG. Each family was given 2 hectares of land and subsidized for years in their life to, basically to quote-unquote Indonesianize West Papua at the cost of indigenous Papuan. They lose their lands, they lose their livelihood, they lose their culture, many other things.
Cook Islanders are calling for more time for independent research to be conducted on the potential environmental impacts of seabed mining. Te Ipukaria Society organised a peaceful protest on Thursday afternoon with 100 community members heading out to sea for a demonstration. Tiana Hexton has more.
The protest coincides with the Underwater Minerals Conference, the world's largest gathering of ocean mineral stakeholders. Over 250 scientists are currently in Rarotonga for this conference. The Ipukaria Society Director Alana Smith says their paddle out protest is a call to leaders and industry members to slow down.
We are calling for more time to ensure better, robust, independent research is being done in this unknown space with many more mysteries still to discover, as well as more time to have meaningful discussions with our people on some of the new research that is being done in this space as well. So we can be informed on whether us as Cook Islanders should proceed with this industry or not.
Evangeline Wong of the Cook Islands Voyaging Society was amongst a group of sailors on board Waka Marumaru Atua for the protest. She says ocean protection should be prioritised over financial gain.
And it's actually really important that we're really mindful about what happens in the ocean. And this is actually a call to the powers that be to make sure that protecting our ocean is actually of paramount importance. We know that we can get a lot of money from different things, but we only have one ocean.
A recent online opinion poll revealed that 66% of Cook Islands residents oppose deep seabed mining. The survey, carried out last week by Te Punawai Marama, the Cook Islands Centre for Research, gathered close to 800 responses. The centre's director says among those opposed to seabed mining, the primary concern is the potential disruption to deep-sea habitats and marine life, while supporters of mining cite economic benefits as their main reason. Professor Heather Worth says those in charge need to take heed of the community's concerns.
I was really surprised about the level of support to not mine the seabed. I thought it would be less than that. Our results showed that it really wasn't full steam ahead support for seabed exploration even. The Cook Islands Government and the Seabed Minerals Authority really need to actually think about how Cook Islanders feel about what's happening.
Notably, 85% of the survey respondents acknowledged the cultural and spiritual significance of the deep ocean to the Cook Islands community. Cultural teacher Jackie Tuara agrees, saying the ocean is connected to Indigenous heritage. She says the people are guardians of their natural resources.
It's so important in this day and age for our children to be connected to their culture, to their ocean, to their land, to know who they are. For we are guardians of our ocean, we are guardians of our land, we are guardians of our heritage, and we rise to protect what God has given us.
As a mother of two, Ana Ma'ine says they aren't protesting just for themselves, but for the future generations to come.
So we brought the whole family, because for us, it means more than just protecting. It means keeping the history alive for our next generation. I'm hoping this will make an impact on our family as much as it will for everyone else.
Currently, the Cook Islands government has permitted 3 companies exploration licenses to research the economic viability of extracting seabed minerals. If deemed feasible, these companies may receive licenses to begin mining operations.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, Tofa Soifua.